Cost of Victory, Book 1 of the Unseen Scar series by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 14. The fourth batch of music had the perfect song. It was exactly how Zhao felt, overflowing with moroseness. How many more like this does he have? How much music can I ask for before he turns me down? Zhao laid on his bed, hugging a silly jellyfish pillow his oldest sister gave him. It was a joke at the time. Tears fell, but he didn't do anything to stop them. This was his therapy. It calmed him, releasing the demon so he could be happy and supportive for those around him. How could he help others get better if they worried about him? Listening to this bizarre music, he felt connected with whoever made it. Certain songs, anyway. Other people felt this way. It was okay. Someone else knew the pain of loss and failure. Someone else struggled under the crushing weight of a responsibility they'd never considered. Someone else was so conflicted inside, they screamed and cried. Then, they took all that and put it to music to connect with others. This music shouldn't exist, but he was glad it did. Envy filled Zhao. He could feel this way, as long as he fulfilled his responsibilities, but he couldn't share these emotions, couldn't reach out and seek support. It was fine if he screamed and cried and tantrumed, but only if he wasn't caught. He was the example, and others were counting on him. The job was his, regardless of his desires. His screen chimed. Drying his eyes and putting on a happy face, Zhao accepted the call. "Mama, how are you?" "Zhao, my darling, I'll be doing magnificently if you can confirm the claims of the medicine I received." Medicine? He removed the near-invisible earpiece and turned off the music. Complications of that accursed virus takes more lives every day. I know. Anonymous sent me a medicine with instructions for producing more. Also, compelling evidence for its ability to reverse the damage caused by the plague. Is this the medicine Herard told me about? Is it real? No recompense was requested, and assistance was offered for making it. The accompanying report was quite detailed. Zhao nodded. "I'll look into it. I've sent samples your way. They should arrive soon. The included documentation I've messaged to you." As she spoke, Zhao checked. "I have it. We've started testing. I've included our results so far." "I understand. I'll get started right away." If this was the same thing that made Herard better, but how did it get to her so quickly? Tears welled up in his mother's eyes. She wanted this to be real. Zhao wanted the same. More than this, they wanted family to hold, comfort, love. But there was no bridging the distance between them. So he talked to her about everything and nothing until she had to go. "I love you." With a final goodbye, Zhao pulled up the files and scoured them. The instructions for making more were odd. As long as they kept some of the medicine aside and fed it properly, it'd replicate itself. Like some sort of bread starter. Pulling up the images, he studied them carefully. There was something eerie, something recognizable, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Taking the recording of the replicated medicine, he played it in a loop, watching over and over, trying to figure out what bothered him about it. "Ferdinand, your mother's asking to speak with you." Somehow those soft words broke past the screaming in his ear. Startled, he turned. Ozar stood, looking inordinately worried. "Why are you delivering this message instead of a servant?" "Where is she?" "Your family's usual room." Buttoning up his last shirt, Ferdinand bowed to the man and hurried out. The room his family stayed in was remote. The Artemises didn't like putting anyone in such distant rooms, but it was a long-standing request. Once there, he ended the music, allowing that cruel voice to reign again. Knocking, he waited. He was called in much later. "You're slow." Weeping, yelling, pleading, curses and accusations, they stung bitterly. But she volunteered, and now she was dead, and there was no cure. Those who cared about her, they mourned her loss, but it was their own eventual demise fueling their fury. Ferdinand couldn't blame them. "It's my fault. I'm the one responsible." The skeleton took their anger and sorrow, refusing to flinch away. His frozen insides, the numbness, it was uncomfortable and disconcerting. But it was this or feel everything else. Everything he buried, everything he hid. He didn't want to feel that. He didn't want to feel anything. So he wrapped that numbness around himself and soaked up everything they threw at him. Ferdinand knelt, head low, killing what was inside him. "I apologize, Duchess." "Remove your shirts." Duchess Samult stood, arms crossed, looking down at him. "You're a horrible son." Crystal blue eyes darted around the room. His sisters sat dutifully at the little table in the corner. They looked sleepy. "I woke them. I'm sorry, Minora, Trani. I'm a horrible brother. Don't be like me." "No one's as terrible as you." One by one, he laid each shirt beside him on the floor. Then he unwrapped the bandages, holding the medical pad in place. His back was truly gruesome, black and green from bruising, gnarled and oozing from wounds struggling to heal. His little sisters shouldn't see this. They would, though, and they'd know why. Down on one knee, Ferdinand waited shirtless, shivering while his mother examined his bare skin. Do you delight in torturing our prince? No, Duchess. You delight in torturing everyone. Do not lie to me. Your responsibility is to protect him, and you do this? Guilt, that bitter iron, tried contorting his face. You know what would happen to him? He'd be punished for your failings, your misdeeds. Do you want him to hang? He's my prince. Desperation leaked into his voice. He'd done this to Zephyr. Everything. It was all his fault. He'd never have to try sabotaging his prince. Just existing was enough. Stand. The Duchess interrupted his spiraling thoughts. How will you kill her? Silent, he did as commanded. The back of her hand crashed against his cheek. You protect and support our prince, first and foremost. Yes, Duchess. Ferdinand blinked quickly, keeping his face expressionless, while the voice sniggered. Her hand, that dull still, came again, assaulting the same spot. Our prince comes first, always. Yes, Duchess. Another slap landed. Stop tormenting our prince. He shouldn't have to keep you in line every moment. Yes, Duchess. One strike after another hit, with instruction and rebuke, until his nerves were too raw to fill. You've done worse than kill her already. When you cause our prince to do these things, you aren't the one who'll be hurt. Smack. You aren't the one who'll suffer. Smack. You aren't the one to clean up your mess. Smack. Yes, Duchess. Anger and frustration, disappointment, made her upper lip twitch. What's the point of having a defective son, a freak? You're selfish, just as our prince says. Get out. You sicken me. Waiting long enough to give the Duchess one last chance to smack him, Ferdinand gathered his bandages and shirts and headed outside before redressing. In the gardens he hid in shadows and drowned in angry music. Unforgivable failure bound him, but Ferdinand's eyes stayed focused on bright orange and yellow. Drums and grinding metal filled the world. And failure. He failed his prince, his country yet again. Why am I alive? I can't do anything right. I hurt everyone. There you... John put a hand to his ally's shoulder, only to have his ribcage rammed through. Gasping, clutching at his side, the thinker staggered back. Ferdinand's eyes doubled and his jaw dropped. I saw him. Why didn't I stop myself? He shrunk back into the flower-laden bushes. Nearly transparent blue crystals couldn't tear away from the child doubled over and gasping. No. Why did I give in to Oya? I never should have fought. I never should have allowed myself such indulgence. Ugh! How can you be so strong while that tiny? Ow! Growling out, John forced himself to straighten. He gathered a breath to yell, only to stop. Eyes focused on the red mark, marring Ferdinand's stark white face. What happened to your cheek? A bony hand covered the numb spot as a low bass reverberated. Nothing. John was about to argue when the skeleton turned away, facing the flowering bush. Ferdinand? Wrapping an arm around his stomach, Ferdinand turned back and bowed. I'm sorry, I was startled. Sighing, John's shoulders slumped. It's fine. I'm useless. Why did I allow myself to be so weak? I can't fight her anymore. I have to disappoint her. It was troubling how long Ferdinand stayed bowed. John stood awkwardly until words spilled out of his mouth. Time for breakfast. We're waiting on you to start. Clutching harder at his stomach, Ferdinand turned back the plant and forced himself to straighten. I don't feel well. I can get Samuel, John offered. A violent gag from the skeleton startled him. Ferdinand? Soft leaves brushed Ferdinand's face as he gulped down air. My mint tin's in the room. I'm tired. I can get your mom, John gave another offer. Turning, Ferdinand shook his head slowly. Don't trouble her. I just need to rest. A strange kind of horror twisted John's face. Pushing himself away, Ferdinand staggered deeper into the garden maze. He couldn't deal with anyone right now. Zhao? Elby peeked through the door. Elby! Zhao turned and shouted, lively as always. Come in! Are you bored too? Elby accepted the invitation and took a seat. Not bored. Frustrated. Frustrated? Over break? Why? Elby held up the partially disassembled disc. That's one of Ferdinand's contraptions. It's one of his medical discs. Why is it broken? It isn't broken. I just removed the cover, Elby mumbled. Okay. Why? Zhao never knew what to expect concerning Ferdinand, so he didn't bother guessing. I wanted to learn how to make them. Taking one apart is a good starting point, for a tinkerer anyway. Learn anything yet? No, he finally agreed to teach me, if I can figure out where he started with the circuit boards. It took me 2 weeks to decipher how he layered the case together. I've been trying all break, but it's so complicated. Why would anyone make something like this? In all honesty, Zhao never asked. Ferdinand's inventions didn't interest him. This worked out well since Ferdinand never talked about them. Not sure what to say, he asked Elby to show him the disc. The young boy placed it carefully on the table. Pulling some mnemonic compression tweezers from his pocket, Elby went to work removing the circuit boards. Wait, these aren't regular circuit boards. They were some kind of delicate microboard and unlike anything he'd seen before. What are they made of? They were thinner than paper, and the circuitry was so fine it looked printed on. Once Elby finished, he counted the microboards. 38. 38 boards? Is he insane? Who'd put this much effort into something people find useless? Why are there so many? Elby asked hopefully. Watching you remove them, it looked like they were interconnected, like a mini-brain. Maybe so many are needed to fit all the information and programming. Mismatched eyes drooped and Elby sighed. So, you can't help me? I'd only make it harder for you to figure out. Who can I ask? Ferdinand? Zhao picked up a microboard, studying it closely. He said I can't ask him, said his lab doesn't exist till I figured this out. You can try Master Ludwig. He approved this as an evaluation project. Frustrated, Elby dropped his head in despair. Zhao smirked. Patting Elby's shoulder was meant to comfort him, but the boy flinched away. Can you get it back together? Yes. Elby pointed to the corner as he started reassembling it. What are you doing with a scanner in here? Ah, a little research my mama asked me to do. Can I see? Of course. A tinkerer would have fun with this, though I think something clicked in Zhao's mind. My search for the scientist who discovered the cure was useless, but there's one person I know who'd make something like this. Think what? Ha, completely slipped my mind. Sorry about that. Zhao smiled big and turned the scanner for Elby to access. Once the samples arrived, Zhao discovered what bothered him about the recordings his mom sent. The medicine wasn't really medicine. It was tiny artificial cells. But why? From what Gerard told him about the medicine Healer Bear offered, I'll have to talk to the head healer. There was another person he could ask too. Gerard was his suite-mate. It was infinitely easier to nab a few minutes from an island brother than from someone of such high responsibility.